Good morning, everyone. It is a great pleasure to be here with all of you today, and I'm excited to discuss a topic that I believe plays a critical role in our everyday lives: emotional regulation. In our fast-paced, stress-filled world, emotions can often feel overwhelming. We all encounter moments of frustration, anger, or anxiety, and it is in these moments that our ability to manage our emotions becomes crucial. Today, I will be sharing with you two powerful tools for emotional regulation: the 6-second rule and the 90-second rule. These simple yet effective concepts will help you understand how to pause, process, and manage emotions in ways that enhance your decision-making, well-being, and relationships. Emotions, what are they, and why do they matter? Before we dive into the rules, it's important to understand what emotions are. Emotions are more than just fleeting feelings. They are complex psychological and physiological reactions that our brains trigger in response to both external and internal events. For instance, when something happens that threatens our safety or challenges our beliefs, we may feel emotions like fear or anger. On the other hand, positive stimuli, such as achieving a goal or receiving praise, can result in feelings of joy or excitement. Emotions act as a signal system. They alert us to potential opportunities or dangers and influence how we interact with the world around us. However, while emotions are essential, they can sometimes cloud our judgment or lead to impulsive decisions, especially if they are not properly managed. This is where emotional regulation comes into play: our ability to control our emotional reactions in ways that align with our long-term goals and values. The 6-second rule: managing impulses. Let's start with the 6-second rule, a simple but highly effective technique for preventing impulsive reactions. The concept is straightforward. When you feel an intense emotion rising, whether it's anger, frustration, or fear, pause for 6 seconds before responding. Why 6 seconds? Research has shown that this brief pause is enough time for your brain to shift from the emotional response center, the amygdala, to the more rational, decision-making center, the prefrontal cortex. How the 6-second rule works. When we experience something emotionally triggering, the amygdala reacts almost instantly, activating the body's fight or flight response. This is a survival mechanism that has been hardwired into our brains for thousands of years to protect us from threats. However, in modern-day scenarios, this same response can lead to impulsive actions that may not serve us well. For instance, snapping at a colleague or making a rash decision in a stressful moment. The beauty of the 6-second rule lies in its simplicity. By pausing for just 6 seconds, you give your brain time to calm the emotional surge and engage the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for logical thinking and decision-making. This allows you to respond in a more thoughtful and controlled manner. For example of the 6-second rule in action. Imagine you're in a meeting at work, and a colleague criticizes your presentation. Your initial reaction might be to feel defensive or even angry. The immediate urge might be to snap back or make a harsh comment. However, if you apply the 6-second rule and take a moment to pause and breathe, you give yourself time to calm down and consider your response. After those 6 seconds, you might choose to acknowledge the feedback calmly, perhaps by saying, "Thank you for your input. I'll consider it." This way, you maintain professionalism and avoid a potentially heated exchange. The 6-second rule is especially helpful in moments of conflict or high pressure, where impulsive reactions can lead to misunderstandings or long-term damage to relationships. By giving yourself a moment to pause, you reduce the risk of saying or doing something you'll regret later. The 90-second rule: understanding emotional duration. Now let's move on to the 90-second rule, a concept that takes a slightly different approach to emotional regulation. The 90-second rule was introduced by neuroanatomist Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor, who discovered that the physiological component of an emotion, what we feel physically in response to a triggering event, lasts for just 90 seconds. After that, the physical reaction naturally dissipates, and any continuation of the emotion is driven by our thoughts rather than the initial physiological response. How the 90-second rule works. When we experience an emotion, it sets off a chain reaction in our brain and body. The brain triggers the release of stress hormones such as adrenaline and cortisol, which produce the physical sensations associated with emotions such as a racing heart, tense muscles, or shallow breathing. These physiological changes are the body's way of preparing to handle the situation. However, the crucial insight from Dr. Taylor's research is that this physical process only lasts for about 90 seconds. After that time, if you are still feeling the emotion intensely, it is because you are mentally re-triggering it by focusing on the original event. For instance, if someone makes a comment that upsets you, your body reacts immediately. But after 90 seconds, the biochemical response fades away. If you continue to feel upset after this point, it is because you are replaying the comment in your mind, thinking about how unfair it was or imagining similar situations. Essentially, it is your thoughts that keep the emotion alive beyond the initial 90 seconds. For example of the 90-second rule in action. Let's say you are driving and someone cuts you off in traffic. You feel a surge of anger, your heart races, your muscles tense, and you might even clench the steering wheel. According to the 90-second rule, these physical sensations will pass within a minute and a half. If, after 90 seconds, you're still feeling angry, it's likely because you're replaying the incident in your mind, thinking, how dare they cut me off, or people are so reckless. However, if you consciously choose not to dwell on the event after the initial 90 seconds, the anger will subside naturally, allowing you to continue your drive calmly. The key takeaway from the 90-second rule is that we have the power to control whether an emotion lasts for just 90 seconds or much longer. It's a choice we make whether to let the emotion pass or to hold on to it through our thoughts. Applying both rules in daily life, a deeper analysis with illustrations. Now that we've explored both the 6-second rule and the 90-second rule, it's crucial to understand how these two principles can complement each other and be applied in different aspects of daily life. While each rule serves a unique purpose, together they form a comprehensive toolkit for managing emotions in a variety of challenging situations. Let's take a closer look at how these rules function in specific real-world scenarios and how they can help us achieve emotional balance and thoughtful decision-making. Conflict resolution, preventing escalation and letting go. Conflict is an inevitable part of life, whether it arises in personal relationships or professional settings. The way we handle these conflicts, however, determines whether they result in deeper understanding or prolonged tension. This is where the 6-second rule and the 90-second rule become especially valuable. Imagine this: you're having a discussion with a close friend, and suddenly they make a comment that feels like a personal attack. Your immediate emotional reaction is to feel hurt and defensive. Without thinking, you're tempted to lash out or respond harshly. But if you apply the 6-second rule, you pause. In those brief 6 seconds, you give yourself space to breathe, calm down, and think about your response. Instead of escalating the argument by responding defensively, you might say something like, "I didn't expect that comment. Can you explain what you meant?" This shift in your response opens the door for clarification and prevents the conflict from spiraling. Now let's take it a step further. After the initial pause, the 90-second rule comes into play. Once you've calmed your emotional reaction with the 6-second pause, the emotional surge you felt starts to subside within 90 seconds. At this point, the ball is in your court. You can either let the emotion pass, or you can dwell on it, replaying the hurtful comment in your mind. If you choose to follow the 90-second rule, you actively decide not to fuel the negative emotion. Instead of replaying the scenario and letting resentment build, you allow the emotion to fade away. This practice frees you from holding on to unnecessary emotional baggage, allowing the conflict to be resolved more quickly and with less emotional strain. Illustration: in a professional setting, let's say your supervisor gives you unexpected negative feedback in a team meeting. You might immediately feel embarrassed or frustrated in front of your colleagues. By using the 6-second rule, you can pause and respond with something constructive, like, "I understand your point. I'll work on improving that later." The 90-second rule helps you let go of the embarrassment or frustration, rather than dwelling on it for the rest of the day. This dual approach prevents long-term resentment and keeps the situation from affecting your future interactions with your supervisor. Stressful work situations, avoiding burnout and managing pressure. Work environments are often sources of stress, particularly when deadlines are tight, expectations are high, and things don't go as planned. In these high-pressure moments, emotions like frustration, anxiety, and even anger can easily arise. Without proper management, these emotions can lead to hasty decisions, strained relationships with colleagues, or a drop in productivity. Let's consider a scenario where you're working on a major project and suddenly a crucial element fails. You feel an immediate surge of panic and frustration. Your mind races with thoughts like, "I'm going to miss the deadline," or "This is a disaster." In this moment, the 6-second rule helps you regain control. Instead of reacting impulsively, perhaps by sending a frustrated email to a team member or panicking out loud, you pause for 6 seconds. You take a deep breath, allowing your brain to transition from the emotional response panic to the logical response problem solving. This simple pause gives you the space to think clearly and focus on solutions rather than getting trapped in emotional reactions. After this, the 90-second rule can further support you by reminding you that the intense emotion of frustration is temporary. If you don't allow your mind to fuel that emotion by ruminating on how things went wrong or dwelling on the pressure, you'll find that the feeling dissipates. You're then able to approach the issue with a clearer mind, enabling you to solve the problem more effectively. Illustration: picture a situation where you are part of a marketing team and you've just launched a campaign that didn't meet its expected results. Initially, you may feel like the entire project is a failure, and you might be tempted to start blaming your teammates or doubting your own abilities. By applying the 6-second rule, you stop yourself from reacting in the heat of the moment. After that, the 90-second rule allows you to acknowledge that the disappointment is natural but temporary. You then move forward by assessing the campaign's data with a calm mind and determining what went wrong, turning a potential emotional burnout into a learning experience. Personal growth and self-awareness, building resilience and emotional intelligence. Both the 6-second rule and the 90-second rule contribute significantly to personal growth by enhancing emotional awareness and resilience. These rules not only help you manage difficult emotions in the moment, but also help you develop emotional intelligence over time, allowing you to become more mindful of your reactions and behaviors. Let's examine a scenario where you're trying to build a new habit, such as public speaking or engaging in a new hobby. Naturally, you might feel nervous or anxious about failing. For instance, when you are about to give a speech and notice the audience's critical expressions, you might immediately feel a surge of anxiety. The 6-second rule comes into play by helping you stop that anxiety from overtaking your performance. You pause, take a deep breath, and remind yourself that it's normal to feel nervous in such situations. This brief pause keeps you grounded and prevents the emotion from escalating into full-blown panic. Afterward, as you proceed with your speech, the 90-second rule can help you recognize that the initial wave of anxiety will pass. Even though the nerves are real, they are transient. Within 90 seconds, the body's natural reaction to stress subsides and you are left with a clearer head to continue your speech. Over time, regularly applying these rules can build your confidence, helping you handle high-pressure situations with greater emotional resilience. Illustration: suppose you're learning a new skill, such as playing a musical instrument. During your first public performance, you feel an overwhelming surge of anxiety. Instead of letting that anxiety paralyze you, you use the 6-second rule to pause, breathe, and regain composure. As you continue playing, the 90-second rule helps you realize that the nerves will fade and you can focus on enjoying the performance rather than fearing it. Through repeated practice, you develop greater self-awareness and emotional control, ultimately reducing performance anxiety over time. These real-world examples demonstrate how both the 6-second rule and the 90-second rule can be applied across different areas of life: conflict resolution, stressful work environments, and personal growth. By using these tools, you not only improve your immediate emotional responses, but also cultivate long-term emotional intelligence and resilience. By pausing to reflect on your emotional states and allowing them to pass naturally, you gain more control over how you react to life's challenges. This doesn't mean avoiding emotions altogether, but rather learning how to engage with them in healthier, more constructive ways. Both the 6-second rule and the 90-second rule are invaluable assets for anyone looking to navigate the complexities of modern life with greater emotional balance and clarity. Comparing and contrasting the two rules. While both the 6-second rule and 90-second rule are powerful tools for emotional regulation, they serve slightly different purposes. The 6-second rule is about intervening in the moment, allowing you to prevent impulsive actions by pausing briefly. It's a quick, immediate tool you can use whenever emotions start to rise. The 90-second rule, on the other hand, focuses more on allowing emotions to pass naturally. It's about recognizing that emotions are temporary and that we don't have to hold on to them if we don't want to. In essence, the 6-second rule is about stopping yourself before reacting, while the 90-second rule is about letting go of emotions once they've run their physiological course. Together, these two rules provide a comprehensive approach to managing emotions effectively. Why emotional regulation is critical. In conclusion, why does emotional regulation matter? Well, emotions, when unregulated, can lead to poor decision-making, strained relationships, and elevated stress levels. Over time, emotional dysregulation can negatively impact your mental and physical health. By applying the 6-second rule and the 90-second rule, you gain control over your emotional experiences, allowing you to respond rather than react, and ultimately live a more peaceful and productive life. I encourage all of you to practice these rules in your daily lives. Whether you're facing challenges at work, conflicts at home, or moments of personal stress, remember that you have the power to pause, reflect, and allow your emotions to pass. Thank you for your attention.